On the day of our daughter's entrance ceremony, my husband instead went on a trip of adultery with his lover, lying to both me and his daughter that he was going on a business trip.
Hey, where are the pictures of my beautiful girl with that new school bag of hers? I was hoping I wouldn't have to ask you.
Despite the fact that he had betrayed his family, he texted me saying he wanted to see a picture of our daughter with her school bag on her back. Instead of sending him what he wanted to see, however, I sent him a few photographs that were proof of his affair. After I was sure he'd seen the evidence and started to panic, I told him something in addition, as though to deliver the final blow. This is the story of how what I thought was a very healthy marriage and family very quickly deteriorated in a matter of days, and how another unthinkable incident enabled me to send him and everyone he loved into the depths of despair. My name is Roisin, and I'm... What? Strange name, I know. What the hell? I'm of Gaelic descent on my mom's side, after all. Mom herself has a characteristic Isles name, Cuiva, and she is the granddaughter of sheep farmers in rural Wales. She was born in Wales, but moved to the States with her father, my grandpa Carlton, when she was very young after her mother, my grandma Etna, passed on. She learned of her rural Gaelic roots and felt a powerful feeling of pride in her heritage, and insisted her own children at least be named a nice Irish or Gaelic name. Anyway, I'm Roisin, 30 years old, and I work in a local office. My husband, Norman, is 31 and works in the same company that I do as an executive assistant manager. We used to live together with our daughter Kara, who was going to enter elementary school that spring. Norman and I have known each other since we were university students, and after an ordinary relationship that lasted 4 years, we got married right when we both landed jobs, him in sales and myself in product design. Norman is a person who always made everyone around him happy and cheerful, and I thought that with him, I would be able to create a cozy home for a happy family. 1 year after I registered under his name, we were blessed with our daughter, Kara, and after that, the two of us worked hard to raise her well. When this whole story started, we were no longer as passionately in love with each other as we were when we were newlyweds, but I thought our feelings of love and care for each other had not changed during all that time. However, I began to feel like something was strange about my husband's behavior in the months leading up to Kara's graduation from kindergarten. Not only has he been going out for work early in the morning and coming home late, but he's also been going to work on his days off. Furthermore, he started carrying his smartphone with him at all times and even brought it into the bed with him. This made me suspicious of him hiding something from me, because he used to leave it around the house and even sometimes asked me to check for any messages he'd gotten. The fact that he suddenly became very protective of his phone invited doubt into my mind. Hey, what are you doing on your phone so much these days, even after you get into bed?
What? Oh, it's a game, Roisin. It's a game.
But I don't think it would do Kara any good to set an example of playing games even after dark. So I'd appreciate it if you'd refrain from doing so much of that.
Okay, you're right. I'll be careful.
So what's the game you're so obsessed with?
It's actually a game made for adult men.
Really? Then you'd better be extra careful that Kara doesn't see you playing.
I know. I swear, I'll be careful.
I felt that if he really played games, he shouldn't have to sneak around behind my back, but I never interfered with his hobbies and pastimes. And I sure as hell wasn't going to start complaining now, given that they didn't affect our lives as a family. I decided that I don't think I need to know everything about my husband. But what bothered me more than the games was that he was starting to gain some weight. He had told me himself that he was prone to weight gain and that he wanted me to watch his calorie intake and nutritional balance. But how could someone like that not notice the changes in his body shape? Hey, I don't know if I should say this in this way, but I think you gained some weight?
Yes, I have. Maybe it's because I don't eat at home in the morning or at night these days, and all I eat is convenience store lunches. Most of the convenience store bento these days are healthy, which is good, but whenever I see fried food, greed beckons me to be naughty. I'll try harder to stay in shape.
Norman laughed when I told him he looked a little rounder, but I felt uncomfortable that someone who had cared more about his figure than anything else since their school days wasn't so concerned about it anymore. By this point, I was quite suspicious of my husband's strange behavior, but at the time, I was busy with Kara, who was just about to join elementary school. I was busy not only with work, but also with planning for the kindergarten's thank you party and graduation ceremony and attending information meetings for the child care center that would take care of my daughter after she entered elementary school. I stopped working to take care of her when she was but a wee lass, but I was rehired after the facility could keep her until I took her home. This helped the family budget quite a bit, and I wasn't going to stop. The graduation ceremony was going to take place in mid-March, and only one parent was expected to attend. Since I was on the committee for the thank you party to be held after the graduation ceremony, I was pretty much obligated to attend. On the day of the graduation ceremony, Norman went to work early in the morning and came home late at night as usual. When I showed my husband the pictures from his daughter's graduation ceremony, he said, as a sad expression spread across his face,
"Too bad I can't go to Kara's last event of kindergarten. But I'm busy with work right now, so maybe it's just as well."
I know it wasn't an option to you due to some circumstances, but 2 parents can attend her entrance ceremony next month, so I hope you'll adjust your work schedule.
Oh, I know.
I was concerned about my husband's apparent stress. Then one day Grace, who had been a close friend of mine since high school, contacted me and said she wanted to give Kara a present to congratulate her for her entrance into school. So we decided to meet during my lunch break. What will the little darling be doing while you'll be at work after she enters elementary school? Will you leave her with your parents? Up until now, she's been in the care of the kindergarten, and from April, she'll be in the care of the school's child care center. Ah, I see. As a working mother, that ought to be very convenient for you. It really is. And what about you, Grace? What kind of work do you do now? I work for an investigation agency. An investigation agency? Like detective work? Something like that. Remember how I used to be completely obsessed with detective TV shows and movies back in the good old days? Yeah, those shows really inspired me to help people in the same manner. And after maybe 10 years of detective school, essentially, here I am. But I have to admit, it's not exactly a job exciting enough for you to want to hear much about, Roisin. After she explained a few details of what her job actually was as a desk detective, I asked her about the concerns I had with my husband as of late. Grace listened attentively, nodding slowly, asking an occasional question, and taking a few notes in her notebook. She thought for a short while thereafter and then asked me if she could investigate my husband's situation. If nothing comes of it, your husband's inattentiveness to control his life, his addiction to games, and obsession with websites he doesn't want you to see would only be to blame, right? She assured me she wouldn't accept any fees for the investigation if she didn't yield any concrete evidence of foul play. Because I didn't want to keep doubting Norman and moping about it myself, I decided to let her do it. And then it was the following day when everything accelerated.
Actually, I can't attend Kara's entrance ceremony because I have to go on a business trip.
My husband said out of the blue after I'd put Kara to bed for the night. What? You've never been on a business trip before. Why the hell would they send you on one now of all times? On Kara's special day, too.
You don't know anything about my job, do you? I've taken business trips before. It's just that they were all finished during the day.
But this time you're staying away for a few nights, right? Couldn't your bosses have asked someone else?
It's my daughter's once-in-a-lifetime elementary school entrance ceremony. Of course I want to be there.
Of course you do, I answered, my doubts about Norman becoming more powerful by the second. 3 days after my first talk with Grace, I received a call from her asking me to meet up, so she could report the results of my investigation. It was on the weekend, so I left my daughter with my parents and invited my friend to the house. So, I regret this, but you actually had a good reason to be concerned about something, she said as she took out some photographs. There was a strange woman walking arm in arm with Norman. There was also a photo of him entering a building that looked like it could be where the woman's apartment was. So, Norman really was cheating on me? What do you want to do now? What do I want to do? Is this enough for you, to know that your husband's cheating on you? Or are you thinking about going further? Are you contemplating divorce? I don't want to be together with someone who is willingly cheating on me. I want to be considerate of Kara in her situation too, but I think I want a divorce. A single time of walking arm in arm, going in and out of a hotel or apartment could also be considered a one-time mistake, and would be downplayed as solid evidence before a court official. Wait, so these photos are evidence of an affair, but they're not enough? I need more? Yes, I'm afraid so, Roisin. If you're thinking about divorce, these photographs may prove that he had an affair, but they're not enough evidence to build an argument in court with solid foundation. I'd suggest give it another 3 weeks to a month, at least, to gather as much evidence as can be obtained. So in a nutshell, all I'd learned over those few days was that my husband was very likely cheating on me, and that a detective friend of mine merely took photographs of him going in and out of a venue I didn't recognize with a woman clutching his arm. I wanted to proceed with the divorce, as I knew I couldn't trust him any longer. And the last thing I wanted was for Kara to be anywhere close to someone who would rather be committing adultery than be there for her on her big day. I wanted to make sure he couldn't get away with any stupid excuses. And I also wanted to have something solid to use as evidence in case the divorce case was taken to court. So I formally requested Grace to follow up with her investigation of Norman for the following 2 weeks. And I asked her to tail him on the exact day of my daughter's entrance ceremony, which was also when he said he was going on a business trip. On the day of Kara's entrance ceremony, Norman held his daughter's face with both hands, caressed her forehead, told her that he was sorry he couldn't make it, kissed her on her temple, and left on his business trip. As for me, I attended her entrance ceremony, believing that Grace would surely be able to obtain good evidence to support my argument. It was a once-in-a-lifetime day for my daughter. I didn't want to do anything that would be remembered as a bad memory. She shouldered the new school bag and clothes she had chosen and beamed proudly as she said she wanted to take lots of pictures to show her daddy. As I smiled and held up the camera, the very real thought occurred to me that I wanted to make Norman and his lover understand very well that they were hurting such an innocent little sweetheart. After the ceremony, Kara was so tired that she fell asleep earlier than usual. After tucking her in bed, I checked my email and found that Grace had sent me a report on the results of her continuous investigation. I double-checked on Kara, making sure she was asleep. Once I did, I opened the attached file, to discover that Norman really had gone on a trip with a woman, pretending that it was a business trip after all. They seemed to be acting boldly, perhaps because there was no one who knew them at their destination. Grace's report also showed that he was very close to the woman. Physically close, and even determined the number of times one touched the other and how many kisses they shared. There were also a bunch of photos and videos, and my instincts screamed not to watch them. But I knew I had to, and sure enough, I regretted it. It contained explicit content of them going to town against the open window of a hotel room. The file also contained audio recordings of Norman admitting to having a physical relationship with the woman, whose name turned out to be Joyce, as well as words of concrete evidence of how much he disrespected me and my daughter. By this point, I was overwhelmed with nausea. I forced down the urge to puke all over the computer and instead distracted myself by making myself a bowl of oatmeal. When I finally calmed down, clutching the hot ceramic bowl, slurping on sweet, cinnamon-tasting porridge, my phone screen lit to notify of a message from none other than Norman himself.
Hey, where are the pictures of my beautiful girl with that new school bag of hers? I was hoping I wouldn't have to ask you.
I felt something burst inside me when I saw that message. I replied, saying that I was sorry, along with a few of the XXX photographs of his and his lover kissing and doing the old in out that Grace had sent me. I wondered what he would say when he saw these photos. While I was thinking about this, I received a call on my phone from Norman. I answered, but the line was dead silent. I didn't hang up. I merely waited for him to say something as I slurped my oatmeal. After perhaps 2 minutes...
This is not what it looks like. I swear.
What does it look like then?
This woman, she's a collaborator from another company. And she approached me, pretty ferociously, I dare say. She was really getting to me. I swear, I was only doing this so she'd stop. This is not for real.
Did you ask ChatGPT to come up with that frickin' mundane response?
No, Believe me, please. I only met her today, and I swear to you, our relationship is not like that.
I sighed deeply, making sure he heard it loud and clear. Then I said, "Enough with the blatant lies, Norman Durensky. I don't need you deceiving me again. I know everything about the situation. The truth is, I've been feeling uncomfortable with your behavior for the past few months or so. That's why I hired a detective agency to investigate you."
You used a detective agency? To investigate me? But why would you...
The woman you're seeing is a coworker who works at the same company as you do. You've been in and out of her house a lot, and you spend time there in the mornings and after work.
I'm telling you, I was at her house to talk to her about work.
Oh, admit you enjoy the food she cooks too, then why don't you? I know you sometimes eat your breakfast and dinner at home and at the woman's house. If anyone was eating 5 meals a day without exercising enough to burn off all those extra calories, putting on some weight becomes way too obvious now, doesn't it?
It's, well, listen.
We also have audio evidence of you admitting to this physical relationship between you and the woman. Enough with the bullshit.
Why would you do that?
My husband screamed. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? What kind of a motherfricker doesn't even attend his own daughter's entrance ceremony to elementary school and instead goes on a trip of adultery with another woman? And why is said motherfricker yelling at me like some big shot Karen?
Well, I couldn't get paid leave very easily.
If you really cared about your darling daughter, wouldn't you use that paid leave for her? Even if a woman invited you on a trip, just the two of you, you would put your own daughter first. When you put Joyce first, you abandon not only me as your wife, but also Kara. And FYI, she cried a little bit because you weren't there for her today. The poor darling's heartbroken. When I told him this, Norman began to weep and pleaded with me to forgive him. And he asks for mercy. He asks for forgiveness, and yet I find myself unable to grant thy wish, Norman Durensky. All that matters is that the place you once called home no longer welcomes you back. Nor does your family wish for your quick and safe return. You are no longer my husband, nor are you the father of Kara. You gave up those rights by choice, and now you face up to the reality of your decisions. I hung up. My husband continued to call and message me thereafter, but I ignored him. The next morning, I dropped Kara off at school and called my in-laws and parents to talk about what was going to happen, now that the truth was clear. Norman also came home in a panic just before they arrived. So it was 6 of us that ended up discussing the future, but there was a heavy atmosphere in the house. I started talking to everyone without even paying any damn attention to my husband, who was on his knees on the floor, his forehead also against the floor. I could hear him sobbing. "Thank you all for coming. I'll get straight to the point. I found out that Mr. Norman Durensky has been having an affair. I already have solid evidence, and I am going through with a divorce." And then the unthinkable happened.
But Kara just started elementary school, Roisin. It's too soon to call for a divorce after just one small, harmless affair. You might want to reconsider.
I agree. Even married couples sometimes have a crush on the opposite sex. It's just natural. It was just a meaningless, harmless little fling. Forgive Norman this time, dear. My in-laws were actually defending my husband, and my feelings of admiration towards them were quickly lost to abysmal darkness. I had no reason to forgive Norman for his treason, nor did I want to refrain from letting my anger get the better of me for the Durenskys' sake. I despise people who put their own greed first, despite being completely aware that they are married or that they have children. Norman did not take his parental status seriously and betrayed me, and I don't appreciate you for trying to justify his treason. But just look at him, dear. Even Norman is apologizing to you like this.
It's important to have a forgiving heart, too, ain't it?
I suggest you not take the liberty of saying that, Mr. Durensky. Whether I forgive Norman or not is for me to decide, and I have no regrets in declaring that I will never forgive him. If you divorce him, you'll be depriving her of her father. Think about that. Mrs. Durinsky, yesterday was Kara's entrance ceremony to elementary school. Your son knew full well it was and still chose to go on a trip with another woman. He was also recorded saying that he would much rather travel with Joyce more than attend his stupid daughter's entrance ceremony. If you consider such a person a father, let alone a necessary one, I can't help but question your humanity.
I had no idea. I'm sorry about what I said. I'm sorry about my son's actions.
I don't need an apology from you, Mr. Durinsky. Is there any way I can be a family with a man who disrespected my daughter as well as myself? No, I don't believe there is. I will divorce him, and I will never let my daughter see him again. Once I said this, all three Durinskys present fell silent. Days later, my parents then introduced me to a lawyer, and I officially filed for divorce. We agreed that Norman pay me $30,000 in alimony and an additional $700 a month in child support for Kara until she turned 20. I heard that Norman quit his job because he felt it was hard to be working with all the cold stares he'd been receiving. But as long as he fulfills his duty to my daughter, I don't care what kind of job he has. His lover, Joyce, has refused to pay, saying there was no physical relationship. However, when I told her through my lawyer that since I divorced her lover because of his affair with her and that I had solid evidence, that would guarantee me a victory in court in the event she refused to pay, and she finally admitted to committing adultery and became more reasonable. She paid me $20,000 in alimony, and that was the end of Joyce. Both of them had to pay a large amount of alimony for this incident, but this was the result of their own greedy desires. Norman, who lost his job and home, now lives with his parents-in-law. His mother complained to her neighborhood friends that her son had lost everything because of me, who couldn't tolerate even a hint of infidelity. Naturally, they all had enough common sense to know that adultery was completely not okay. And the Durinskys became the outcasts of not only the neighborhood, but essentially the entire city. They can't even move out to another city because their savings have been used to pay alimony on behalf of their son, so they're still living there. As for me, I moved out to a new apartment closer to Kara's school, thinking that making her change schools mere days after she started wasn't ideal for her. I haven't told her the details of why her parents divorced yet, but when I told her that I couldn't live together with her daddy anymore because he had found someone else he loved, she just shrugged and went on to talk about something else. I think she has a rough idea of what had been going on, but when she turns old enough to talk about it, if she wants me to, I would tell her the whole story. But for the time being, now that she's happily attending school, I will do what I can to live a peaceful life with her. Wish us luck!